Hello all, welcome to what I'm going to dub a hooky review. Why? Because I'm supposed to be washing dishes right now, but I've slept all of a cumulative of maybe about 5 to 6 hours over the past 48 hours. And it's about 100 degrees in my bedroom. It'd be even hotter in the kitchen. I would not be able to keep up with the workload. By the same token, I can't sleep either because it's still light out, and I need to change my schedule pretty badly because this is just sleeping during the daytime in the summer in Hawaii is difficult, to say the least. So I'm still conscious and aware enough to be giving you a beer review. And it is a fairly interesting beer review. So I'm going to try to work up some enthusiasm. Like my usual reviews, usually kind of realize I'm very bubbly and evanescent in my reviews, much like the beers. I'm going to try to force that out today. Because today's beer actually is deeply and profoundly interesting. And this is the Lagunitas Dark Swan Sour Ale. Now, why is this interesting? Well, let's read the label first, shall we? Observers of yesteryear denied the existence of the dark swan, insisting the species was confined to a singularly snowy hue. Explorers eventually contradicted that misconception, astonishing the world and casting light upon the dark. This beer may do the same. Now, that doesn't really explain this beer, so you have to go to the website or go to a beer review site, and you find out that this is actually, beyond being a sour, it's actually not even a true sour. The sourness comes more from the heavy use of an adjunct rather than, a souring yeast. It's still using the Lagunitas, trademark yeast. What is interesting about this beer is that the malt has had a heavy addition of Petite Syrah grapes to the mash. No, not the mash. The wort. Sorry, my brain is a little bit out of it right now. But, so, it ends up being sour via the addition of wine grapes, which, as you know, kind of have a sort of acidic, natural taste to them. Well, red wine anyway. Most red wines anyway, including the Petite Syrah grape. So, what we have here is a very interesting hybrid. It's also been dry hopped, so it's got a nice hoppy finish. Though, as you'll see, it's a little bit, it's not as prominent as it would be in a regular beer. So, let's pour this out, shall we? Let this one warm up a little bit. It's pretty rare that you'll find this sort of combo. I know Dog's Fish Head does a sort of wine-beer combo. And what's interesting is as you open it, immediately what you smell is a combination of sweet malts, wine grapes, and hops. This is 8.5 ABV, by the way, so strong for a beer, but fairly light for a wine. The coloration is very ruby red. Very ruby red. The wine grapes definitely lend their coloration, obviously, since they were macerated in their skins. And the head is purple, almost lavender. Can't really see it here. Well, maybe from the edges here. Yeah, there we go. Nicely carbonated. Carbonated like beer, though, not like champagne. You notice our champagne's got very active carbonation. This is carbonated like beer. Head dissipates kind of quickly, so let's get to the sourness. That trademark sort of Lagunitas yeast smell. That trademark Lagunitas dank hop smell. Bready malts and juicy wine grapes. The wine grapes have characters of blackberry, raspberry, hints of minerality too. It really, really meshes well with, the dankness of the hops, as well as the more subtle floral aspects of the hops. It truly comes across as a hybrid. And it is lovely smelling too. Reading the reviews on this is a real love it. Well, I don't know. I think I'm one of the few people that actually love it because I like wine as much as I do beer. I don't really do wine reviews because wine comes across as more of a social drink to me, and beer has more of a solitary feel. I don't know. I've done some wine reviews. You can kind of look back at my channel and find them, but yeah. Tartness up front that really bites into the mids. I kind of wonder, they say it's the house yeast, so obviously they're not using the souring, kind of wild yeast. So I'm wondering how much of it is natural acidity of the grapes, which is much more acidity than a malt base that beer uses. Or just the interplay of the house yeast on the grape sugars, which are different from grain sugars. Carbonation is not much bite to it, but there it makes itself known. In the finish, interestingly, is where you get most of the malt aspect. There's a graininess to the finish underneath the hoppiness. And in the mids, where that tartness is, both that sort of sour tartness, wine tartness, is also where the hops most express their bitterness, and it's a very interesting little intersection there. Because it's unlike anything else I've ever really tasted, and yet it still comes across as very pleasant. You almost kind of wonder, well, what could somebody do with sparkling wine and hops? Just using pure wine grapes and hopping it. It's something to think about. Well, maybe not, because considering how much more pressure sparkling wine usually is put under compared to beer. There's just so much interplay in between the malting and the hopping and that wine aspect there. And on top of that is that sort of sourness. In the front too, you're also, especially as it warms up, you also start getting more of that malts, grainy malts underneath those big juicy grapes. That hopping just has so much really interesting interplay with the grape aspect that is very difficult to explain. I think a lot of people don't like it because it's just so different, but for me it's different in a way that tastes natural rather than forced, like making an ice cream beer. That's kind of forced for me. Hopping a wine grape? Well, this is something, that maybe somewhere someone could have invented, if wine and hops kind of grew at the same parallel, which they don't. Well, they do in Germany, which is pretty much the only real intersection in between you know, grape country and hop country. Hops are fairly far northern. You know, upper temperate range. What's interesting is how ungrapey it tastes. It doesn't taste like Concord grapes or Kool-Aid. It truly tastes wine-like. It tastes like, you know, the yeast had some action on those grape sugars. And that finish, that wine finish, you know, that hint of the grain, that lingering hop bitterness, it is just so interesting. So, you know, it's kind of sad this is only going to be a 2017 one hitter. I would love to see this again. Unfortunately, considering how out there this is, you know, it's unlikely to be seen again. But you know, maybe they could like rename this, make a hybrid style. You know, somebody go out there and just make beer wine hybrids all day long. That'd actually be pretty interesting. So, yeah. You know, this is obviously a stunt beer. But as stunt beers go, this is how stunt beers should be done. This goes and takes a really out there sort of idea and implements it in a way that, one, not only tastes good, but two, tastes kind of natural, unforced. Like, wow, why hasn't somebody thought of this before? You know? So, do go and do yourself a favor of getting Dark Swan Sour Ale. If you like hoppy beers, if you like red wines, if you like sour ales, you know, it's just maybe you won't like it, but you'll never really have a chance to have something like this again, you know. Well, that's your beer review for tonight, folks, or you know, this afternoon, late afternoon. Cheers.